Have you ever been like, yes, I'm going to declutter my kitchen today, only to get into it and be like, I don't know. Do I need the pie server? Do I need this spoon? And what on earth do you do with the piles of paper clutter on the counter? So today I'm gonna share some speed tips for decluttering your kitchen so that you can move through these roadblocks quickly and not have to worry about making a mistake. Well, hi, I'm Dawn from The Minimal Mom. We love sharing about family minimalism and our favorite tips and tricks to help you simplify your house. Today we're working in the kitchen, but do you know what else is very exciting is that we are kicking off a month-long series called A Clutter-Free January, and I've recruited some other friends here on YouTube to talk about the same topics. So this week, I'm being joined by over 20 other YouTubers to talk about decluttering and organizing our kitchens. Isn't that fun? So my hope is that you can head into your kitchen to get some decluttering and simplifying and organizing done. You can put the playlist on, which I will link to down below, and have tons of kitchen inspiration. More videos will be added to it throughout the week, and then coming up next week, we're gonna talk about clothing, after that paper clutter, and then storage spaces and sentimental items. So we have a full month lineup to help you get a ton of decluttering done throughout the month of January. So I hope it's really helpful and energizing and motivating to you. But today, let's talk about the different areas of the kitchen that can really kind of hang us up. So I did a survey and asked, what is it about your kitchen that makes it hard to declutter? And I don't think the responses are going to surprise you. One of the top answers was that my kitchen is too small. Another thing was storing pantry items in a way that we know what's there and stuff doesn't go bad. Another was paper clutter that always seems to accumulate on our kitchen counters. And then from there, not knowing how far to go with simplifying utensils and dishes. So let's work through some of those problems today. Okay, I'm actually gonna start backwards on these because I've had kind of like a light bulb moment, like, whoa, when it comes to simplifying your dishes and utensils. So I've been getting to spend some more time with Dana from A Slob Comes Clean. We created the Take Your House Back course together. It's still available. Details are down below. It's going awesome, by the way, but those details are down below. But Dana is so adamant that we do our dishes every single day. We wash all the dishes every single day. And when she first started talking about it, I was like, well, yeah, that's a great like housekeeping tip, tactic. I think most of us know that if we stay up on the dishes, it makes it easier to keep the rest of the kitchen clean too. Like it just seems to go hand in hand that if the dishes are done, then it's like, oh, it's only a couple more minutes to pick up and wipe down the counters. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But I know for many of us, we're like, okay, I just need to get the decluttering and simplifying done first, and then we'll talk housekeeping, right? Like that's how I approached it. I'm like, I just have to get it decluttered. I know it'll be easier to clean after it's decluttered. Like, don't bother me with the dishes right now, Dana, right? But as she talked about it more, what she said was that if we do the dishes every day, we realize that we don't need as many extra dishes and we don't need all that extra silverware and cooking utensils and storage containers. You develop a confidence when you're doing the dishes every day that, oh, I can get by with one full set of dishes or two at the most. I don't need 4 sets, or I don't need all these food storage containers or silverware. And so she said that by developing the habit of doing your dishes every single day, it gave her the ability then and the confidence to go much, much further with simplifying her dishes. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. And like I said, normally I kind of keep them separate. Like decluttering is its own thing, housekeeping is its own thing, right? But I see how if we can get in the habit of doing our dishes every single day, that not only is it gonna give us confidence to simplify our dishes, but I think too, because we're probably gonna keep the rest of the spaces more picked up and everything, I think we're gonna get annoyed with the stuff that doesn't have a home, that doesn't fit well in the cupboard, because we're actually gonna start to like our kitchen more and like being in it more when we develop this habit. And so stuff that doesn't fit, we're just gonna be like, get out of my kitchen, right? Like I'm trying to do this new habit, I'm trying to be intentional about it, and I don't want this stuff that doesn't fit. And so I know we're talking about like decluttering today, but I do think getting in the habit of doing your dishes every single day could completely change your kitchen, even without doing more decluttering. And my mom actually recommitted to this recently, and she's at like, I mean, she's been doing it for over a week now. And she texted last night and was like, wow, I can't believe how great this is doing the dishes every single day. The first few days, there was a little grumbling, right? But now she's just like, wow. And I'm always aware of not telling you what to do. Like, you need to do the dishes every day. We all know we need to do the dishes every day, right? But I do want to gently encourage you that if your kitchen has felt kind of hopeless, that maybe if we would get into this habit, it could really change things. And I've said it before, Tom has said, when the kitchen is clean, it feels like life's under control. And at first I'm like, that's a little melodramatic, right? But as I thought about it more, I was like, okay, yes. Like, to me too, when the kitchen is clean, it's like, okay, what do we need to do today? I can tackle things, I can cook when I need to, and it is a much more enjoyable place to be. All right, so the second thing, I forgot what order I said them in. Okay, that's fine, we can mix this up if we need to. I'm sorry if this isn't in the exact right order. Okay, but that also leads us to not wanting to make a mistake. I didn't actually straighten this. Okay, you can't even really see in it. Usually I just at least peek in to make sure it's kind of straightened up. But not wanting to make a mistake with simplifying like our cooking utensils and dishes. And so I think having a quarantine box or bin is priceless when it comes to the kitchen, because we don't want to be wasteful. We don't want to get rid of something that we might use down the road. But if I'm being honest with you, we're just not using a lot of this stuff in our kitchen. So a quarantine bin is awesome in the kitchen, but let me make one recommendation with it. All right, this is actually my current donation box, because like Dana had said too, like, always have a donatable donation box in your house, right? So what I would recommend, I've showed like Rubbermaid totes for quarantine bins in the past, but I'm changing it. I think it needs to be a cardboard box, and then you put your stuff in there that you want to quarantine. So I'm going through my drawer and I'm like, okay, literally have not used this in 2 years, but what if someone comes over for pie next week, right? And so I'm like, okay, I don't know, so I'm gonna put it into the quarantine box. But what's great if it's a cardboard box is that you close it up, tape it shut, and say, donate on, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. And so until that time, you can go in there, you can pull anything out that you might have mistakenly put in there. But then if it's a cardboard box, you literally just take this and donate it. So there's been some scientific evidence that once we put something into a donation box, we don't ever want to touch it again. So if I have to pull this out to take it from a rubber bin to a cardboard box, there's actually a high likelihood that I will second guess my decision because we've touched it again. So sometimes when we touch stuff, it makes it harder to part with again. If I just looked in the box and saw it, okay, not a big deal, donate the whole box, right? But if I have to touch it and move it from one thing to another container, there's a good likelihood that I would decide to keep this again, and we don't want that, right? So I think quarantine bins or boxes are a fantastic idea, especially in the kitchen, but make sure you're putting it in something that you can just go ahead and donate the whole box then, and your kitchen is gonna be so much better for it. All right, so what about food? We know how it can kind of end up spilling out of the cabinets. You keep the cereal boxes on top of the fridge, and other stuff is just has to be kept on the counter because there's nowhere else to put it. Well, again, Dana from A Slob Comes Clean talks about the container method, and I think this is so key in the kitchen. And what that means is that we look at each cabinet or place that we have to store food as a container, and then we simply keep what fits inside. And what's funny about this is Dana will say that she does not like being told what to do, right? And like, I'm more compliant, like you can tell me what to do and I'm fine with it, but she's like, don't tell me what to do. And so I'm like, well, Dana, but don't you feel like then, like the container is telling you what to do or the cabinet's telling you what to do? Like, you can only keep as much food as fits in me. And she was like, no, it's like totally different because it's not a person. And she was like, I actually really appreciate that guideline, that I look at a space and I say, okay, I can keep anything that comfortably fits in here. And so we can actually get through a lot of food, extra food and food storage stuff and inventory really quickly when we apply this container concept. We look at our cabinets and we say, okay, I can keep what comfortably fits inside. So in this instance, it might be a good idea to pull the food out, discard anything that's expired or you're not using, or put it on the counter and commit to using it up like today, and then put back in what you want to keep in those cabinets. And if you need more space, if you're like, I just need to keep a little more, then we look at the other cabinets around it and say, okay, well, what's more important to me, a bread maker or more food storage? And then you pick, and it might be the bread maker or it might be having the extra food storage, but we generally can't have it all and have a simplified and peaceful and enjoyable kitchen. Something has to give, right? But you get to decide. And so we let the boundary be the bad guy, or we let the container dictate how much we keep. And so I do think when we approach it this way, it actually can help you get through your food really quickly. And really, I don't think you're gonna feel limited. Once you get all the food into its containers, you're gonna love how your kitchen feels. And what else is cool is that once we get this container concept down, we apply it to all the other areas of our kitchen too, like dish towels and dish rags and pot holders and plastic bags. I know most people don't keep their plastic bags in a drawer, but whatever space you have for them, that's how many you keep. And it's magical and it's freeing and it feels really good. And I know there's always a question too about where do you keep the fruit? So we keep our fruit in this cabinet here. And I know then the question is like, well, don't you need it out? I mean, at our house, if we don't have it out, then it doesn't get eaten and it goes bad. And so I, for the longest time, had a basket of fruit on the center of the island. It did not get eaten any more than it did when it was in here, because it just becomes like we become blind to it, right? Like you can become clutter blind, you can become fruit blind. Like just because it's sitting out there did not make it more likely for us to use it. What made it more likely for us to use it was setting a habit of when are we gonna eat fruit in our household. So we try to, after at least 2 meals a day, then we tell that, like, everyone's like, okay, now you have a piece of fruit, kind of like our dessert, but that's just what we do. It could be with breakfast, it could be for a snack, but that's what made it so we eat fruit consistently and don't waste it, was setting that habit. It didn't actually matter where we kept the fruit. So, all right, and we for sure have to talk about the piles of paper clutter that like to accumulate on our counters. I mean, I just remember in our last house, it was just a given that on the end of the island, there was always a stack of paper stuff, of just that random stuff that you didn't know what to do with. And then if someone was coming over, I would like push it all together and then I'd move it over behind the island next to the fridge, you know? And so we've been talking a lot this past week about the Sunday basket. It was created by Lisa from Organized 365, but this is a great solution. Well, so this is just one I made myself. Like you can get more attractive containers. I'll link to the videos down below where we talked about it, where I made this and all of that. But basically, that's what this is where random paper goes. But this is a game changer because this can either sit out on your counter if you're more of a visual person. I like to tuck it away in my cabinet, but whatever works for you. This, along with some of the other suggestions I made, could totally eliminate the piles of paper on your counter. I mean, we literally never have piles of paper in here anymore, which is, I never actually thought that was physically possible, right? I just assumed there would always be those random piles. So this has been a game changer, and it does require a little bit of maintenance, but I do think if we're getting in the habit of doing our dishes every day, kind of keeping the kitchen tidied up, I think this is going to be a really natural next step that isn't hard, but you're going to have gained some confidence in yourself, and I think this will be very practical. And I mean, talk about completely transforming your kitchen. All right, and then the last gripe was that my kitchen is just too small. And I totally get that. I still remember my very first apartment, it had the tiniest kitchen. It was so small. But you know what? We just didn't keep a lot of stuff in it. But yet that was probably the most cooking I've done in my life. I was on this like health kick and, you know, wanted to be healthy and cook my own meals and that. And so even though it was a very tiny kitchen, I just kept the essentials in there and was able to do a ton of cooking in it. And so it's really applying the container concept, or I'll sometimes say like make the boundaries the bad guy, where we can just only keep what comfortably fits. And we keep all of our favorite stuff first, and then the rest we throw into the quarantine box and we see if we're gonna miss it. And I know it's easy to say, but to actually do it is another thing. But I really think that's where the quarantine box is so key in this situation. If you're worried about making making a mistake or if you have a hard time parting with stuff, the quarantine box is huge. So throw stuff in there and then just test out having a simplified kitchen. And I think you'll find that when you kind of get to test drive having a simplified kitchen for a little while, kind of try it out, I think you're gonna find that you really like it, and anything that you might be sacrificing or giving up to have it, I think it's gonna feel worthwhile and you're not gonna miss it anymore. At least that's been my experience, because again, our kitchen's not gigantic. I know it's not tiny either, but I have had to be selective about what we're able to keep in it and whatnot. So I do understand that a little bit, but I hope this is helpful, and I hope you'll check out that playlist for all the other videos for our clutter-free January, and that you really get some good ideas and good momentum and good energy around this. I know you can do it. I know it's not always easy, but I know you can do it, and it's gonna feel so good to have your kitchen simplified. All right, well, that's all for today. I love you. I hope you have a good day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.